Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Clay from Clay's Collections. Hey, we're back with a few new items, but then there's another topic I wanted to talk about today, which is what you find in old books, right? So let me show you first off the things that I picked up. Now these I picked up at a local consignment shop. It's called Turnstile. They're actually a chain, so you may have some in your area. And I stop by there occasionally just to see what they have. They have a lot of nice items, typically a lot of furniture, home decor type of things, but I always check their artwork because I've done really well. They have some great artwork at very reasonable prices, sometimes by some well-known artists, one of the two. Anyway, so I went there and I was looking around. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Clay. I am a part-time antique dealer. I deal mostly in books at this point in time, and I sell through the Pink Elephant, which is an antique store in Hopkins, Minnesota. At this point, I do not do any online sales. I have thought about restarting my eBay store, but at this point, I have enough going on in life. So I've chosen not to do that. So when I can find stuff at yard sales, stores, vintage stores. I actually don't do many thrift stores anymore. I just have not had a whole lot of luck at local thrift stores at finding things. Better luck at the consignment store, honestly. So let's just get into it. So one of the things that I sell well at the antique store is artwork and frames. So I basically have three major categories at the antique store. So if you're thinking about selling in a brick and mortar store, these are kind of some things that I've learned by doing it. One is, kind of have a niche. Because like our store, everybody kind of has their, generally everybody has a lot of nice mix, but there's people that specialize in certain things. So if you can find something to specialize in that no one else in the store specializes in, it kind of gives you a little better market. And one of the things I identified was books. We really didn't, everybody has like 4 or 5 books, but I like going into an antique store where there's just shelves of old books. And when I go to most antique malls, there's always one dealer that has books, and there's a large number of books. And it's worked well for me. I've done really well with books. I sell more books than anything. On average, I'm selling a book a day at the antique store. To sell anything, any one category every day is a good thing. So, but the other piece of that is artwork in frames. And so I look for those when I'm out and about. And right now the big trend is the very ornate gold gilded frames and that type of artwork. That's kind of the trend going on right now. And it's hard for me to find it at a reasonable price, and it's when I do find it, it sells very quickly. So it's a good market to be in. So I'm looking for that type. Now, this isn't exactly what I was looking for, but the other key in selling frames is don't try to sell them without a picture in them. So like this is a 5x7, so it's a perfect postcard size. So I bought this because I thought this, a nice antique postcard in here. And it's one of those that can go either direction. It's got the stand on the back. So a nice postcard in here, and this could sell really well. And this was only, if I remember right, this was only like $5.50 is all they were asking for this. Plus it was 20% off that day. So I got it for like $4. So I'll put a postcard in there, and my price range is probably around 15 to 20. I think would do really well for something like that. And then as I was checking out, I saw this, which is a little miniature frame. It's vintage, and the ornate brass stand. These are book, plate, picture stands, whatever you want to. Now these two are together. Now the price on these were $10.50 for both of them, plus the 20% off. So, approximately a little over $8 for these two. But this frame, I would sell for around 10 alone. So this would recoup my investment. And then the stand is, $14, $15 is what I would put on that. But I use these all the time. So they're great for display until they sell. So they're dual purpose in my mind. And again, they're harder to find, these little ornate brass ones. And I might just keep the stand because I can get my money back with the frame, the picture. And then this last one that I picked up is heavy. And I picked it up because it's definitely, I'm going to raise the camera just a hair. Sorry about the handprint there. It's definitely 1970s vibe. But in the medieval vibe of the 1970s. It's this very heavy velvet key picture. So there's one that's loose, and I know it's loose because it fell off and hit my foot and it hurt. These are very heavy, these reproduction keys. So these are reproductions of, you know, like medieval chests and the different style of keys that they have. And somebody made this frame specifically for these. And what's funny is there's an inventory number on the back. So somebody had their whole house inventoried. Because there was another picture that was there that had the similar marking on it. And so, again, this is a unique vibe for somebody. You have to, you know, it's not the typical bright colors of the 60s and 70s, but it definitely carries that same Mediterranean medieval feel to it. And it, like I say, it's very heavy, so I don't want to hold this thing very long. So this was $18 less 20%. So, you know, I'm paying a little, you know, less than $15 for it. But this is something I'll sell for $40, $45 is what I'll put on it. And if it sits for a long time, that's okay, because I like statement pieces like this that kind of stand out, that kind of draw people into your booth. Is the other thing that you want, is, you know, certain pieces that make people go, oh, I want to go check that out a little more. Not that, you know, they might not be interested in it, but they're just curious about it. And that gets people in your booth looking closer at your merchandise. Okay, so the next thing, I have a couple books that I want to show you guys, and I'm titling this section the What You Find in Old Books. Many times you'll find things like bookmarks, and what's interesting, people say you find money in books, and all the books I've dealt with over the last 4 years, haven't found $1. So they're out there. I know they are. We've actually that's. Cindy and I were at a garage sale one time. This was a good number of years ago, before I started reselling. And there was a bunch of books, and I was looking through some of them, and I opened one of them. There was a $20 bill in it. Of course, we immediately gave it to the people running the garage sale, and they were like, oh yeah, that was my dad. You know, we thought we went through all of these books, but we must have missed some. So, you know, I'm not to say there's not money in it. I've just never found any. So, all right, this book I actually picked up at the Goodwill bins a number of years ago. And it's got the guy's name stamped on the outside. This is actually it's a journal that this gentleman wrote. It's actually a poetry book, from what I understand. Now, it's in Swedish, so I can't read it. But I did find out that the gentleman, I did a little research, and the gentleman immigrated to New York. I don't know exactly when, but then he ended up in Lincoln, Nebraska at one point, you know, of his life, and that's where he lived the rest of his life, was in Lincoln, Nebraska. But it's all a handwritten journal in Swedish. But as you go through this, it's 1926 New York. He's got June 5th through the 8th, 1926 New York. So I don't know if it's a journal about his particular day and poems that you know, correlate to that, or what it is. But one of the things is somebody took some time, and I'm assuming a family member, to try to translate from Swedish to English. So I thought that was kind of a fun little note. And then as you flip through the book, there's another whole set of letters within the book. Again, all in Swedish, but these were not by Christoph, the guy that wrote the book, but from either family members or someone like that. October 1927. So And here's another translation thing. So I thought that was fun. It makes it a very personal book. It brings the person to life that owned this book. You know, it's self-bound. It's just got a suede cover with 2 straps of leather going through each one of the signatures to tie them together. But I just think it shows the reality of the person making it. All right, so these 2 books I picked up in an auction lot, which is actually where I'm finding more and more of my antique books because they're harder to find in person, I'm finding, at least around here. But this one happens to have another poem. It's interesting that a lot of books have poems that people wrote on it. And this one's from on New Year's Day. And I'll just read a little bit of it. It says, "This day has come and brought to me my 67th year, and now reflections on the past, I see how they appear. Could be appear or appear. They certainly look like F's, not P's. I view my childhood's early days like fishes in the stream. They glide along the silver rill, and then no more are seen." And it goes on like that, which I think is just an adorable little letter. And that's what I found in that book. But this is a companion book to that, same author, written a couple years later. And in this book, and I have to show it to you because it's super fragile. And where is it now? Oh, there's 2 things. One, there's a pamphlet, religious pamphlet, on Had Christ Not Come. But there's this ribbon, which is Pray for the Spiritual Plight of America's Children. It's put out by the Child Evangelism Fellowship, which I thought was most unique. Again, it's a little bookmark. This other one might not fall apart, or might not fall. Have the pages fall separate when I get to it. I should have marked it ahead of time. What it is a ribbon. Oh, where'd it go? But it's very fragile. It's almost like a silk ribbon. And the end was sticking out, and I pulled on it, and it just fell apart. Maybe the rest of it fell apart, too. All right, I'll just take another minute here to try to find it. And I found a number of ribbons that way in books, just simple little ribbons. All right, I can't find it. But, so like in this book, this is a cool book. It's called The Bird's Christmas Carol. It's a rarer book. The original publication was 1880. This is the 1894 reprint of it. Still first edition, but published in 1894. And it's endorsed Hattie Christmas 1894. That's when she got it, but this is also the 1894 edition that it talks about here on the cover page. But in there was this fabulous little Christmas bookmark. And you can see the ribbon is, again, very delicate at this point. It's got a couple holly leaves on it. And this is sent with the true Christmas spirit. I love that little card that somebody made. Beautiful graphics. So that's in there. And then in Bibles, many times you'll find a lot of different information, right? But this particular one surprised me because I'm used to finding like family history, religious tracts, funeral cards, those types of things. But this one had a happy anniversary Glendon envelope. So I opened it up. Look at this card. Look at that swinging cats. Isn't it awesome? And then it has a newspaper article in the card. And it says, "Happy anniversary. Dear Glendon, 24 years of dedicated service to a company is really something to celebrate. We are proud of you, Glendon, and all of your successes. Much love, Arlene and Kurt." So this actually is the gentleman that they're talking about. His name is Glendon Johnson, and he worked for Gold Bond Stamp Company. You know, the Gold Bond saving stamps, right? And he was one of their top salesmen. He was promoted to vice president and national sales manager. So this article, apparently they were proud of him, so they cut it out and put it in his card. I just thought that was awesome with the picture. But the interesting thing is this particular Bible has a lot of notes in it as well that this card was in. And it says in here, I accepted Christ as my personal savior, September 1916. And I'm like, Glendon, when he got this, you know, promoted and this recognition on his anniversary, this was in the I think it was like 1970 something. So it couldn't have been Glendon's Bible, originally at least. Maybe it was his father's. But yeah, because Glendon was born in the 40s, from what I can tell. So maybe it was, but even his father would be pretty old. Maybe his grandfather. I don't know. It was one of those puzzling things that I wasn't sure of. But there were also a couple other pieces of paper in here, and one of them was this. And it's in rather poor shape. But it's called A Mother's Prayer. It obviously came in the newspaper. And this, if you look at the back, many times from newspapers you can tell the date. See this hairstyle? That is definitely a 1920s to 30s era haircut for women. So, and I can't remember if I found a date on this or not. Not a year, a date, but, so yeah, so I thought that was a fun little find. To me, finding stuff in books is almost as fun as finding the books themselves. Then there's this other little article, which questions about tea, aspirin, and stomach ills, which I thought was an interesting thing to be included with all the others, right? But that just goes to show you'll never know what you're going to find in a book besides the words. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Great to see you. Catch you next time.